2, get down. Paid the cost to be the boss.
But just who is the boss these days? The Prime Minister? Parliament? Judges, perhaps? Or is it, as we're so often told, the people? Us? After the week we've just had, it's not an easy question to answer. Constitutional experts and historians are clear on the theory. The ultimate boss is the Crown in Parliament. And because we have a constitutional monarchy, that makes Parliament the supreme legal authority in the UK. The sovereign appoints a person who can command a majority in the House of Commons to form a government, the executive. That tends to put de facto power in the hands of the Prime Minister. But Boris Johnson has, of course, lost his majority.
At present, the House of Commons is in charge. The government is in a minority of 45 in the Commons, so it can't govern. And in my view, it's unconstitutional for the Commons to take over power. If the Commons doesn't like the government, it should choose another government, either through a vote of no confidence or through allowing a general election.
The principle of parliamentary sovereignty is the reason the Speaker of the House of Commons, John Bercow, feels empowered to prevent Boris Johnson forcing through a no-deal Brexit against the will of Parliament.
He is absolutely representing the view that Parliament is the preeminent body in this country. He's backed up by the fact that there is a majority now in Parliament which does seem opposed to the government and what they're doing, but nonetheless it's a very controversial position.
The rule of law, as made by Parliament, is the reason the decisions of judges have figured so prominently this week. Scottish judges, petitioned by MPs, ruled this week that the prorogation of Parliament had been unlawful, that Mr Johnson had been motivated by the improper purpose of stymieing Parliament. But English judges said this was a political matter, so not a question for them. The Supreme Court will rule on the matter next Tuesday. If they uphold the Scottish verdict, Parliament could be recalled.
It's for the judges to interpret and determine the law, particularly in complex cases such as a prorogation case, where eminent jurists take different sides, and it's for the Supreme Court in the last resort to decide. The Supreme Court is the highest legal authority in the land, and the government will have to abide by its judgment.
Look at me!
And what of the people? Aren't they supposed to be in charge in a democracy? The Prime Minister heard from some of them in Rotherham today. Experts say the will of the people is supposed to be channelled through our parliamentary representatives. But we did have that referendum in 2016, which some see as providing a rival popular mandate.
As a country, we're not used to having referendums. If you look at Ireland, say they have them frequently on, major constitutional issues. And for that reason, there's this kind of tension between the two different forms of it.
MPs do represent the will of the people, and they did so when they passed the EU Notification of Withdrawal Act in 2017 by a majority of 384 votes. But we're in deadlock because the Commons has willed the end of Brexit without willing the means, because it refused to accept on 3 occasions the only deal available according to the European Union. It's also refused to accept no deal or a second referendum.
So how should we decide who's the boss? A general election? A second referendum? A written constitution, as the Speaker has suggested? We're all arguably paying the cost of being unsure who's in charge.